Hello, I'm Mohamad Iadid Ashrai Hassannudin. The research that I'm looking into is the aesthetic reading of English literature component text through reader response activities. The purpose of integrating literature component text has highlighted in generating the aesthetic part of the language that can be derived from the students' personal responses. Yet, there is a huge disjunction of teaching literature between the teachers and policymakers that affects the students in developing their language and appreciating the literature through literature reading process. It is a formidable issue in instilling and inculcating aesthetic and critical reading of the students. This is because the students are not able to express their opinion and responses as the teaching approaches employed by the teachers are no longer aligned with the underlying aims of the literature component in the English classroom. The constantly changing teaching approaches of literature component employed by the teachers show that the curriculum specification of literature component does not have any specific approaches in teaching and reading literature component text. However, previous studies reflected that the teaching and reading literature in Malaysian classroom was seen to be passive as the student was spoon-fed and often mainly teacher-centered in order to achieve good grades for students in the examinations. The highlighted issues pertaining to the previous studies are mostly on the effectiveness of the reader response approach in teaching and learning literature component text in local contexts, as the students perceive the approach to only assist them to answer the examination questions correctly instead of responding and relating the literary text to their personal feelings. Hence, this can be inferred that the notions of reader response is only to be carried out through teaching and learning activities in order to score high marks in the examinations. Born out of concern what is going on in the literature reading lesson, this research will look into the use of reader response approach, whereby the principles of Rosenblatt's reader response followed the core aspirations of literature component that is designed to nurture aesthetic reading in appreciating literature by relating and responding to the text aesthetically and critically in order to understand characters in the literary text and gain the aesthetic values for students' personality development. Apart from that, this research sets to determine the students' aesthetic reading using Pike's aesthetic reading model through the use of reader response activity that guides the teachers to be apprehensive towards individual variation in approaching the literary text through personal aesthetic reading transaction. Therefore, the purpose of this research is conducted to investigate the aesthetic reading process through reader response activity in reading English literature component text of Form 4 and Form 5 in the Malaysian secondary schools. Hence, the accumulated findings have guided the teachers to emphasize on reader response activities in inculcating aesthetic reading of literary text, as the students can explore in reading and responding to the literary text in depth and meaningful. Moreover, the students have demonstrated aesthetic responses in relating and responding to the text with their personal schemata and feelings, which is evoked by the use of reader response activities in aesthetic reading experiences. In responding to the issues, the findings of the research have highlighted the positive impacts of the reader response approach in inculcating aesthetic reading process in reading literature component text. This is necessary to fill in the gap in the previous research, which is to reflect on the aesthetic aims of using literary text as well as to understand and respond according to the students' personal feelings and experiences. Thank you.